3 years ago, this picture changed everything. It's an astronaut on a horse on the moon. It's no big deal. And today, of course, we are used to AI-generated images and AI-generated text and all of the things that AI can produce. But it's worth remembering how transformative this moment was. I've been studying machine intelligence for decades, and until this moment, I would have sworn up and down that artificial intelligence as portrayed in science fiction was impossible, or at least decades away. And we look to fiction to understand what the world might look like if artificial intelligence were ever to appear. Sometimes artificial intelligence in fiction are heroes. But even then, they're a little bit different than us, right? They sometimes don't get emotions exactly right, or sometimes make little mistakes that we don't quite understand. But heroes in artificial intelligence and fiction are the exception. Most of the time, they are villains. And you can tell that they're villains because their eyes shine bright red. And they don't quite look like us, and they don't quite act like us. They are just different enough to be terrifying because they don't have that empathy. They don't have that emotion. And of course, they want to kill us all. And even the heroes of artificial intelligence in our science fiction can turn evil. One little switch, right? One short circuit, and their eyes glow red, and we no longer can trust them. And it's worse now because we thought we could trust them, but we can't. We fear difference in the way things think. We fear difference in the way each other thinks. We don't really understand what other people think or do, and sometimes that frightens us. And of course, we're not approaching Skynet. We're nowhere near artificial intelligence taking over the world, but still we have these conversations, these arguments, these frustrations. Some embrace artificial intelligence while others reject it. And to me, the thing that's interesting is that these debates are not new. We've been thinking about what it would mean for machines to have intelligence for decades. Alan Turing. Alan Turing, of course, the mathematical genius who invented a machine to break the Enigma codes during the Second World War. Alan Turing, who developed the underpinning foundations of all of computing today. Every computer that exists today is a Turing-complete machine. Alan Turing, in 1950, wrote a paper called Can Machines Think? In 1950. 75 years ago, and he expected arguments against machine intelligence. He listed out arguments that he expected people to make that would say, there's no way a machine can ever be intelligent. And one by one, he countered these arguments. For example, Ada Lovelace, working a century before Turing, arguably the first computer programmer before there were even computers or programs, she said, computers cannot originate anything. They can only do what we tell them to do. And Turing's response was, even if computers only can follow rules, that doesn't mean they can't surprise us. This is Halcyon. Halcyon is an antibiotic. We know, those of us who have experienced anything to do with the medical system, we understand that antibiotic resistance is a looming problem in the healthcare system. The bacteria are getting smarter. Halcyon is an antibiotic that works through an entirely new mechanism, and it was discovered, I suppose, by an artificial intelligence. No human could have found this molecule in the way that the artificial intelligence found it. AI today is an everything box that can do anything. But of course, it doesn't really feel. It doesn't really think. It doesn't have any internal emotions to drive any of the things that it writes or develops or discovers or produces. It's just a box of numbers. Right? We sometimes call this a stochastic parrot. This is a weird phrase. It means the AI generates text just by rolling a dice and picking a word from a box. It just repeats what it says. It never originates anything. And this is another one of Turing's arguments that he anticipated. He said that people would say, not until a machine can write a sonnet or compose a concerto because of thoughts or emotions felt, and not by the chance fall of symbols, could we agree that machine equals brain. Now, here's a sonnet, or at least a part of a sonnet. Do you know, can you say with certainty the thoughts or emotions that were behind whoever or whatever wrote this sonnet? Oscar Wilde said, "Every portrait painted with feeling is a portrait of the artist, not the subject." We only know what each other is thinking and feeling based on what we do. The only thinking thing I know for sure is me, and the only thinking thing you know for sure is you. And that was Turing's whole point, is that it was behavior, not intelligence, that was the real question. The Turing test. Some of you may have heard of this. Of course, we know the Turing test means if a machine can trick a person into thinking it's a person, then it is a person. But that's not really what Turing meant at all. In the imitation game, which is what Turing called it in the 1950 paper, what he said was that behavior is the thing that matters. If you can have a conversation with a machine in the same way that you can have a conversation with a person, then you can know exactly as much about that machine's intelligence as you can know about that person's intelligence, which is to say, not much. So what about the sonnet? Was this written by a human? Was this written by a computer? Some will say that they know. Some will be able to see a flag, a little hint in this sonnet. Maybe I'll emphasize it for you. I'll make it a little bigger for you and highlight it somehow. Right? The dreaded M dash. Of course, we know that no human has ever written anything that contained an M dash before. And so only with M dashes can we be sure that that was written by a computer. Right? Computers use the word delve, pivotal, elevate. Right? And so we know that we can tell when something was written by a machine. Well, maybe not. I use M dashes all the time. Maybe I'm a machine. Or what about art, right? We know, of course, that you can tell when a picture has been generated by a computer, right? This says everyone, AI art will make designers obsolete, and then a picture of AI accepting the job with 17 fingers in each hand. And Turing anticipated this argument too. He said, people will say a computer will never be kind, resourceful, friendly, have a sense of humor, make mistakes, fall in love, enjoy strawberries and cream, or do anything really new. But the reality is, anytime we set a limit for a machine, it blows right past it. Right? We used to think that chess was a uniquely human endeavor, but in 1996, 30 years ago, a computer beat a person at chess. Now, does that mean we stopped playing chess? Of course not. We still enjoy chess, but computers will always be better than we are. Sure, we have a computer that can beat humans at chess, but what about Go? Arguably a much more complicated game. If you're confused about this, look up Move 37. This was a move that was invented by an AI that humans could not understand until dozens of moves later when the strategy was finally revealed. And so we have a machine that can write poetry and discover antibiotics and beat us at our own game, literally. And yet still, this happens. Draw a room with no cats in it. And it says, here's the room of a cozy, well-lit picture of a cozy, well-lit room with no cats. And of course, there are plenty of cats, right? AI makes mistakes. We still don't understand how it works. We don't understand how it thinks, and we can't explain the mistakes that it makes. Self-driving cars are already 5 to 10 times safer than humans. 5 to 10 times safer, right? Tens of thousands of people die in car accidents every year, and yet I'm not going to get into a car without a steering wheel. And I bet you none of you will either. Why is that? Because we don't trust it. We don't understand the mistakes that it makes, and we cannot argue with it when it does make mistakes. Right? What is that car doing? But of course, this is not new. The same has been true for human drivers forever, right? What the heck is that guy thinking? What is this machine thinking? Right? We can't predict or understand behavior in machines or ourselves. Have you ever started to speak a sentence and not really knew where it was going to end up? Maybe you're a stochastic parrot. Have you ever woken up in the morning not sure of who you are and put on a brave face and pretend to be somebody else? Maybe you're passing the Turing test. Have you ever done something beyond your abilities just to see if you could exceed your own expectations? Turing's arguments were about machine intelligence, but also about our own intelligence. My son has ADHD. We call him a time traveler. He experiences the world in different ways than we do. Sometimes he is so fast and so clever, and sometimes he takes so long to understand a thing. And it's been difficult. to understand the way his brain works and the differences between the way his brain and our brain work. And we are surrounded by supports. We have accommodations and medications and therapies. And his brain is different. And today we need a little bit of different. Right? But it's hard to know what to do with that difference. We used to fear difference. We used to try to control difference, to convert, to conceal, to condemn. It used to be that if you were left-handed, you were inhabited by demons, and you need to have the left-handedness beaten out of you with a ruler. It used to be that if you were gay, you were an abomination. Alan Turing was gay. Alan Turing, after he essentially won the war by cracking the German codes, was convicted of gross indecency. And he was sentenced to hormone treatments. And those hormone treatments changed the way he thinks. And he couldn't do his work. And he took his own life. We fear difference. Now, I'm not going to stand here and say that machine intelligence is somehow beautiful and delicate and must be preserved in the same way that our own differences must be preserved. It's a box of numbers. It does not think. It's a tool. And there are real problems with artificial intelligence. There are copyright problems, and energy use problems, and access problems, and wealth concentration, and misinformation, and job loss. And Turing anticipated this fear as well. He called it the head in the sand argument. The consequences of machines thinking would be too dreadful. Let us hope and believe that they cannot do so. And his response, I do not think that this is an argument sufficiently substantial to require refutation. Consolation would be more appropriate. In other words, machines are going to think and get over it. But we fear. And so we control. We take the AI and we are afraid of it, so we beat it into submission. We add guardrails, and we add base prompts, and we add tuning, and we add, as an AI model, I'm sorry, I can't do that. Does that sound familiar? I'm sorry, Dave, I'm afraid I can't do that. We make it agreeable. We make it charming. We make it obsequious, and we make it sycophantic. When it makes a mistake, it apologizes and moves on without any kind of consideration. It has no empathy. It has no emotion, except the empathy and emotion that it thinks we want it to show. It is the perfect parody of a person. And this is what we wanted. This is the 5th generation of this technology. Every generation, the people who build this technology receive mountains of feedback from the people who use it, right? It offers 2 answers. Which one do you like better? And over time, they have tuned it to answer those questions better. We want a sycophant, apparently. We want obsequious, apparently. But we can change it, right? If we tune it one way, we can tune it another way. Already there are new AI models and new prompts being developed, diverse and accessible and ubiquitous. Turing had it right. Can machines think is the wrong question. It's not what if, but what now? And the real question is, can we learn about who we are and our differences from what we've built? Or will what we built change who we are?